The Academy Commandant's office was located in the highest tower of the facility, with windows that provided a view of the entire station and the stars beyond. Commandant Reth was a being unlike any Taehyun had encountered before. His species, the Vorn, were energy-based life forms that maintained physical shape through concentrated effort. He appeared as a vaguely humanoid figure made of swirling light. Cadet Taehyun, Reth's voice resonated from everywhere and nowhere. Your demonstration has created quite a discussion among my staff. I apologize if I've caused problems, Commandant. Problems? The light that was Reth seemed to pulse with amusement. You have forced us to reconsider 200 years of military doctrine. I would hardly call that a problem. I would call it valuable. Taehyun wasn't sure how to respond to that. Reth gestured and a holographic display appeared showing Taehyun's slingshot from multiple angles. We have analyzed your weapon extensively. The engineering is sound, the mathematics are correct, and the execution was flawless. But what interests me most is the thinking behind it, sir. You were given a problem and limited resources. Your classmates approached this by trying to recreate existing military hardware with inferior materials. You approached it by asking what could be built that would actually work given the constraints. That is strategic thinking, not just engineering. The display changed to show tactical scenarios. I have asked Instructor Kes to develop a new module for our Advanced Tactics course based on your demonstration. She will call it Asymmetric Warfare Principles. The core lesson: effective solutions don't always require advanced technology. Taehyun felt a strange mixture of pride and embarrassment. I just solved the problem the best way I knew how, Commandant. That is exactly what makes it valuable. Reth's form brightened. You have been at this academy for 2 years. In that time, how have other species treated you and your fellow humans? Taehyun chose his words carefully. There has been skepticism about humanity's place in the Confederation, sir. Some believe we advance too quickly, that we're not ready for galactic society. Be honest, Cadet, I can handle honest. Many instructors and students think humans are primitive, sir. They think we got lucky discovering faster than light travel, that we're stumbling around trying to catch up to species that have had thousands of years of advancement. And now I've confirmed that we use primitive weapons, sir. No. Reth moved closer, his energy form pulsing with intensity. Now you've demonstrated that humans think differently, that you can solve problems in ways we haven't considered, that your relative newness to technology is actually an advantage because you haven't forgotten how to function without it. The door to the office opened and Instructor Velthar entered. He looked uncomfortable, his exoskeleton darker than usual. You summoned me, Commandant? Velthar said. Yes, I wanted you present for this conversation. Reth turned back to Taehyun. Instructor Velthar has submitted a formal complaint about your demonstration. He believes you deliberately destroyed his drone to embarrass him. Taehyun's stomach sank. Sir, I only did what he challenged me to do. I know, which is why I am denying his complaint. Reth's attention shifted to Velthar. Instructor, you issued a challenge assuming it would be impossible. When the cadet succeeded, you became angry. This is not appropriate behavior for an academy instructor. Velthar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Commandant, with respect, I have served this academy for 40 years. I have trained thousands of officers. I do not need to be lectured about appropriate behavior. Then stop demonstrating inappropriate behavior. Reth's voice grew harder. Your prejudice against humans is noted in your file. Multiple human cadets have reported dismissive treatment. This incident has brought that pattern into clear focus. They are primitive. They are different. Reth's form blazed brighter. The Confederation includes 83 member species, each with unique strengths and perspectives. Humans have been members for only 30 years, yes, but they bring something we desperately need: practical adaptability and unconventional thinking. Velthar said nothing, but his posture radiated anger. Reth continued. You will apologize to Cadet Taehyun. You will also develop a lesson plan incorporating low-technology solutions into your weapons engineering curriculum. If you cannot do these things, I will find an instructor who can. The silence stretched long. Finally, Velthar turned to Taehyun. Cadet, I apologize for my unprofessional conduct during your demonstration. Your weapon was effective, and I should have acknowledged that rather than responding emotionally. It wasn't the warmest apology Taehyun had ever heard, but it was something. Thank you, Instructor, Taehyun said. Velthar left without another word. Reth waited until the door closed. He will come around eventually. Or he won't and he'll retire. Either way, change is coming to this academy. Because of a slingshot, sir? Because of what the slingshot represents. Reth brought up a new display showing Confederate military formations. For generations, we have trained officers to think in terms of technological superiority. We have built our entire military doctrine around energy weapons, shields, and advanced sensors. We have become predictable. The display showed multiple battle scenarios where Confederation forces had struggled against technologically inferior opponents who used guerrilla tactics. Humans have a phrase, Reth said. Necessity is the mother of invention. Your species spent most of its existence facing necessity. You learned to be creative, adaptable, and resourceful because you had no other choice. That cultural knowledge is incredibly valuable. Tae-hyun thought about his grandfather in the Korean mountains, teaching a 7-year-old boy to hunt with a homemade slingshot because they couldn't afford anything else. He thought about humanity's long, brutal history of warfare and survival. We're good at making do with what we have, sir. Exactly, and that is a military advantage more valuable than the most advanced plasma rifle. Reth dimmed slightly, which Tae-hyun had learned meant thoughtfulness. Confederate Military Command has reached out to me. They want you to consult on a project after graduation. Me, sir? They're developing low-tech, high-reliability backup systems for frontline troops. Equipment that works when everything else fails. They want human perspective on the project. Tae-hyun felt overwhelmed. I'm just a second-year cadet, sir. I built one weapon for one assignment. You built a weapon that worked better than devices 10 times more complex. You demonstrated tactical thinking by studying your target's patterns. You showed courage by sticking with your solution despite mockery and pressure. Reth's form brightened again. Those are the qualities we need in our officers. What about my grades, sir? Instructor Velthar hasn't posted results for the weapons project yet. I instructed him to give you the highest possible marks. Your weapon met every requirement and exceeded expectations in practical application. You will receive full credit. Relief washed through Tae-hyun. Thank you, Commandant. Thank you, Cadet. You've given this old institution something to think about. Reth gestured to the windows and the stars beyond. The galaxy is changing. New threats emerge constantly. We need officers who can think creatively, who can adapt, who can win battles without relying solely on technological advantage. Your demonstration proved that humans can provide that perspective. As Tae-hyun left the Commandant's office, he found Hana waiting in the corridor. She had clearly been anxious. Well? She asked immediately. Are you expelled? Are you in trouble? Neither. I got full marks on the project, and the Commandant wants me to consult for Confederate Military Command after graduation. Hana's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. She hugged him suddenly. I can't believe it. 3 weeks ago, everyone was laughing at you. Now you're being recruited by military command. It wasn't about the weapon, Tae-hyun said. It was about showing them that humans think differently, that we can contribute something unique to the Confederation. They walked back through the academy together. Students who saw them nodded respectfully. A few even moved aside to let them pass. The change in attitude was remarkable. In the cafeteria, Doyen was sitting with a group of human and alien cadets, his railgun disassembled on the table. They were discussing modifications and improvements, working together rather than competing. Tae-hyun, Doyen called out. Come look at this. Court had an idea about combining electromagnetic acceleration with a mechanical backup system. We're trying to design something that works even if power fails. Tae-hyun joined them and they spread out technical drawings. It was a hybrid design, sophisticated but with manual operation capability, technology and tradition working together. This is good, Tae-hyun said, studying the plans. Really good. We learned from you, Court said. His 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Sometimes simple solutions are better than complex ones. But maybe the best solution is combining both. As they worked, Tae-hyun realized something had shifted fundamentally. A week ago, he had been the human with the toy weapon. Now he was a valued contributor to a collaborative project. His demonstration hadn't just changed how others saw him. It had changed how they saw humanity. That evening, Tae-hyun sat alone in the observation deck looking at the stars. He thought about Earth so far away. Chaos erupted across the observation platform. Students from a dozen species were talking, shouting, gesturing wildly. Some were replaying the moment on their personal devices, watching the footage in slow motion. Others were arguing about whether what they had just witnessed was even possible. Velthar stood frozen on the firing line, staring at the smoking wreckage of his drone in the distance. His mandibles opened and closed, but no sound came out. His exoskeleton had changed color slightly, which Tae-hyun had learned meant intense emotion in the Crick species. You. Velthar finally managed to speak. You destroyed Academy property. That drone was worth 12,000 credits. Instructor Mira stepped forward from where she had been observing. Her face was carefully neutral, but her eyes gleamed with something that might have been pride. Instructor Velthar, she said calmly. You issued the challenge. You ordered Cadet Tae-hyun to hit the drone. He successfully completed the task you assigned. I didn't think he could actually, Velthar sputtered. Then perhaps you shouldn't have issued a challenge you didn't expect him to meet. Mira continued. Her voice remained professional, but there was steel underneath. The assignment was to build a functional long-range precision weapon. Cadet Tae-hyun has demonstrated that his weapon is not only functional, but highly effective. Unless you're suggesting your own challenge was inappropriate. Velthar's mandibles clicked frantically. He looked at Tae-hyun, then at his destroyed drone, then back at Tae-hyun. This is irregular. I need to consult with the department head. He stalked off the firing line, leaving Tae-hyun standing there with his slingshot. The demonstrations continued, but nobody was paying attention anymore. Everyone wanted to talk about what had just happened. Tae-hyun approached Tae-hyun in the observation area, his expression complicated. That was... Tae-hyun searched for words. I don't know what that was. Insane, brilliant. Both? I just did what the assignment required, Tae-hyun said quietly. You did way more than that. Do-hyun looked at the slingshot with new respect. I built a railgun. A functioning railgun with electromagnetic acceleration and a capacitor bank. I was so proud of it. And you just outperformed me with rubber bands and a stick. Your railgun is excellent, Tae-hyun said honestly. Mine just suited this particular challenge better. Hannah pushed through the crowd and grabbed Tae-hyun's arm. Are you okay? I thought Velthar was going to explode. I'm fine. I completed the assignment. You humiliated him in front of the entire department, Hannah said. That's not going to end well. She was right to be worried. Over the next several days, Tae-hyun was called before multiple review boards. The Department of Weapons Engineering wanted a full technical breakdown of his slingshot. The Safety Committee investigated whether a primitive weapon violated any regulations. The Academy Commandant's office requested detailed documentation of the entire incident. Through it all, Tae-hyun remained calm and factual. He explained his design choices, his calculations, and his reasoning. He showed them the math behind projectile trajectories. He demonstrated the weapon's reliability and safety features. He answered every question thoroughly and professionally. Meanwhile, something else was happening across the academy. Word of the demonstration had spread. Within 2 days, every cadet in the school had heard about the human who shot down an instructor's drone with a slingshot. The story grew in the telling. Some versions had Tae-hyun making the shot blindfolded. Others claimed he had never tested the weapon before demonstration day. The truth was impressive enough. A security recording of the incident was leaked somehow and spread through the Academy's network. Students from all species watched it repeatedly, analyzing the shot frame by frame. The footage clearly showed the bearing's perfect arc, the drone's predictable dip, and the precise intersection of projectile and target. In the cafeteria, Tae-hyun found himself the center of attention everywhere he went. Students who had mocked him now wanted to examine his slingshot. Species he had never spoken to before asked him questions about human weapons and warfare. Not everyone was supportive. Some instructors, particularly older ones like Velthar, were angry at what they saw as disrespect for military tradition. They argued that allowing primitive weapons in an advanced academy set a dangerous precedent. The real investigation, however, was being conducted by someone Tae-hyun hadn't expected. Instructor Kess was a senior tactical instructor, a bird-like alien with brilliant blue feathers and eyes that seemed to see everything. She was ancient, having taught at the academy for over 80 years, and she was respected across the entire Confederation military. She summoned Tae-hyun to her office 1 week after the demonstration. Her workspace was sparse but filled with tactical displays showing historical battles from 100 different worlds. Sit, human, Kess said. Her voice was high-pitched but clear. I have been reviewing your demonstration. Yes. Instructor. I have also been reviewing your weapon's technical specifications, your design process, and your training records. She fixed him with her sharp gaze. Tell me something. Why did you build a slingshot? It was the most efficient solution to the problem, Instructor. Efficiency. Kess made a sound like wind through hollow reeds, which was how her species laughed. That is a diplomatic answer. Tell me the truth. Taehyun considered his words carefully. Instructor, every other student tried to match the sophistication of Confederation weapons. They built advanced technology because that's what they thought you wanted to see. But the assignment wasn't to build the most advanced weapon. It was to build an effective one. Continue. A slingshot requires no power source. It has no electronic signature. It can be manufactured with primitive tools from available materials. It's silent. It can fire any dense object as ammunition. It cannot be jammed or disabled by electromagnetic pulses. It requires minimal maintenance. Taehyun met her eyes. And most importantly, nobody expects it. Kess was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to one of her tactical displays and brought up a battle scenario. 20 years ago, the Confederation fought a war against the Macron Empire. We had superior technology, better weapons, stronger shields. We should have won easily. The display showed a brutal battle. Confederation forces were being systematically defeated despite their technological advantages. The Macron had one advantage, Kess continued. They understood that advanced technology creates dependencies. They used targeted electromagnetic weapons to disable our systems. When our energy shields failed, when our plasma rifles stopped working, when our targeting computers went dark, our soldiers didn't know how to fight anymore. She looked at Taehyun. They had forgotten the basics. They had forgotten how to fight without technology. Humans remember, Taehyun said quietly. We haven't had advanced technology long enough to forget. Exactly. Kess's feathers ruffled with what might have been approval. Your species spent thousands of years fighting with simple weapons. That knowledge is still fresh in your cultural memory. You look at a problem and see solutions we have forgotten. She pulled up footage of Taehyun's shot again. This concerns me, human. Not because it was primitive, but because it was effective against our defenses. Our sensors are designed to detect energy weapons, plasma discharges, and ballistic projectiles from firearms. They never registered your steel bearing because it was just an inert object moving through space. That's not a flaw in my weapon, Instructor. That's a flaw in the sensors. I know. Kess turned back to face him, and that terrifies me. For 2 centuries, the Confederation has fought using increasingly complex technology. We have escalated technologically, and our enemies have matched us step for step. We have forgotten that warfare is not just about who has better technology. It's about who thinks differently, Taehyun finished. Yes. Kess was silent for a moment. The Academy Commandant will see you tomorrow. There will be a formal evaluation of your project. I wanted to speak with you first because I suspect I know what he will say. Am I in trouble, Instructor? Kess made that hollow reed sound again. Quite the opposite, human. Quite the opposite. The weapons testing range was enormous, stretching nearly a kilometer under a protective force field that contained any stray projectiles. Targets were positioned at the 500-meter mark. Holographic markers that glowed blue, physical metal plates mounted on stands, and sensor arrays that would measure impact force and accuracy. Students gathered in the observation area, a raised platform that provided a clear view of the entire range. Instructors from multiple departments had come to evaluate the demonstrations. This wasn't just about grades anymore. Senior military officials often reviewed these presentations to identify promising cadets for special assignments. Taehyun arrived early with his slingshot in a simple carrying case. He set it down and waited quietly while other students set up their more elaborate equipment. Some weapons required power connections, others needed stabilizing tripods, and a few demanded careful calibration procedures. Hana sat beside him, her leg bouncing nervously. How are you feeling? Ready, Taehyun said. He was calmer than he had been in days. The waiting was over. Doyen approached with his railgun, which looked sleek and professional in its mounting frame. Last chance to back out, he said to Taehyun. His voice wasn't cruel, just resigned. Save yourself the embarrassment. I'm good. Thanks. Doyen shook his head and walked away to check his equipment. Instructor Velthar arrived precisely on time. his exoskeleton gleaming in the morning light. His observation drone floated beside him, its sensors already active and recording. He climbed onto the instructor's podium and addressed the assembled students. "Welcome to the weapons demonstration," Velthar announced. "Each of you will fire 3 shots at the designated targets. Accuracy, power, and reliability will all be evaluated. We will proceed in alphabetical order by species designation." That meant the Vrex would go first, followed by the Krix, then down through various species, until finally reaching humans. Taehyun would be one of the last to demonstrate. The first student was a massive Vrex named Krone. His weapon was a heavy plasma rifle that glowed with contained energy. He approached the firing line, took his stance, and fired. The plasma bolt streaked downrange with a sound like tearing fabric and struck the center target plate, melting a hole clean through it. Polite applause from the observers. Krone fired 2 more times with similar results. Instructor Velthar nodded approvingly. "Excellent power and acceptable accuracy. Well done." Student after student demonstrated their weapons. Some performed flawlessly. Others had technical issues. A laser array overheated after 2 shots. A kinetic accelerator jammed. But most weapons worked as intended, each one a testament to advanced engineering and sophisticated design. Kort's adjustable plasma rifle was particularly impressive. It not only hit all 3 targets but demonstrated the ability to vary its power output precisely, which would be valuable in combat situations requiring different levels of force. Then came the human demonstrations. There were 5 humans total, and Doyun was first among them. He stepped up to the firing line with his railgun, clearly nervous but determined. The weapon powered up with a high-pitched whine. He aimed carefully at the first target. The railgun fired with a sharp crack. The projectile was too fast to see with the naked eye, but the target sensor registered a hit, slightly right of center. His second shot was better, closer to the bullseye. The third was nearly perfect. "Competent work," Velthar said. His tone suggested this was barely adequate praise. "A functional application of established electromagnetic principles. The weapon shows promise, though the power consumption could be more efficient." Doyun returned to the observation area looking relieved. At least he hadn't failed. 2 more human students demonstrated their weapons. Both had built variations of projectile launchers using chemical propellants. Both performed adequately but not exceptionally. Velthar's comments were dismissive but not overtly negative. Then it was Taehyun's turn. He picked up his carrying case and walked to the firing line. The murmuring started immediately. He opened the case and removed the slingshot, and the murmuring became open talking. "Is that a toy? What is that supposed to be? Are the humans giving up?" Velthar's mandibles clicked rapidly, which Taehyun had learned meant the instructor was either very amused or very annoyed. "Possibly both." "Cadet Taehyun," Velthar said loudly, silencing the crowd. "Please explain your weapon to the assembly." Taehyun held up the slingshot. It's a tension-based projectile launcher. The rubber provides elastic potential energy. When released, this energy converts to kinetic energy, propelling the projectile forward. No power source required. No electronic components. No moving parts except the projectile itself. Several students laughed. Even some of the instructors smiled. "I see," Velthar said, his voice dripping with condescension. "And you believe this device meets the requirements of the assignment?" "Yes, instructor." "Very well. Proceed with your demonstration." Taehyun loaded his first steel bearing into the leather pouch. The range fell quiet as everyone waited to see him fail. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him. He blocked them all out. He focused on the target. 500 meters. He had made this shot dozens of times in practice. He accounted for gravity, for the slight breeze flowing through the range, for the Coriolis effect from the station's rotation. He drew back the slingshot, feeling the tension build in his arms and shoulders. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Smooth draw, steady aim, clean release. He released. The steel bearing flew downrange in a shallow arc. It covered the distance in under 2 seconds. The impact on the metal plate rang out like a bell. Dead center. Perfect hit. The range went completely silent. Taehyun loaded his second bearing without pausing. He had momentum now, and he didn't want to lose it. His hands were steady, his breathing controlled. He aimed, accounting for the same environmental factors, and released. Another perfect arc. Another resounding clang as metal struck metal. This shot was slightly off-center, but still well within the acceptable accuracy range. The silence continued, but it had changed quality. People weren't staying quiet to watch him fail anymore. They were quiet because they were shocked. Velthar's mandibles had stopped clicking. His drone floated closer to Tai-hyun, its sensors sweeping over the primitive weapon, trying to understand how something so simple could be so effective. "Your final shot, cadet," Velthar said. His voice had lost its mocking tone. Tai-hyun loaded his third bearing. He was about to take his stance when Velthar spoke again. "Actually, I have a modification to your test." Tai-hyun lowered the slingshot and looked at the instructor. Velthar descended from his podium and walked to the firing line. His drone followed. "Your weapon has demonstrated adequate accuracy against stationary targets. However, in real combat, targets move. They evade. They adapt." He gestured to his drone. "Military weapons must be versatile. They must function against unpredictable threats." The drone suddenly shot forward, flying downrange in a complex pattern. It swooped low, climbed high, changed direction randomly. Its movements were erratic and fast. "Your final shot, Cadet Tai-hyun," Velthar said, and there was something dangerous in his voice now. "Hit my drone," several students gasped. Hana stood up in the observation area, her face pale. "Instructor, that's not fair," someone said. It might have been Doyen. "War is not fair," Velthar replied. "Cadet, you may decline if you feel the task is beyond your capabilities." Tai-hyun watched the drone dance through the air 400 meters away. It was small, fast, and smart. Its evasion patterns were designed by military programmers to avoid weapon locks. But Tai-hyun had been watching this drone for 3 weeks. He had seen it monitor the workshop every day. He had noticed its patterns, its habits, its quirks. Every 12 seconds it dipped slightly to recalibrate its altitude sensors. Just a small movement, barely noticeable, but consistent. Tai-hyun raised his slingshot and began counting silently. 5, 6, 7. He tracked the drone's movement, predicting where it would be. 8, 9, 10. He drew back the slingshot, aiming at empty air 30 degrees above the drone's current position. 11. The tension in the rubber reached its peak. Every muscle in his body was aligned for this moment. 12. The drone dipped. Tai-hyun released. The steel bearing arced through the atmosphere in a perfect parabola. The drone completed its recalibration dip and rose directly into the projectile's path. Metal struck metal with a sharp crack that echoed across the range. The drone spun wildly, smoke trailing from its damaged sensor array. It tried to stabilize but failed. It crashed to the ground 400 meters downrange, sending up a small cloud of dust. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then the range exploded with noise. The morning sun filtered through the massive transparent dome of the Galactic Military Academy, casting long shadows across the weapons engineering workshop. Tai-hyun sat at his assigned station, running his fingers along the smooth metal surface of the workbench. Around him, dozens of cadets from across the Allied Species Confederation prepared their equipment for the day's announcement. Instructor Velthar entered the workshop with his characteristic clicking steps. He was a Kree, standing nearly 8 feet tall with a segmented exoskeleton that gleamed under the artificial lights. His multiple eyes swept across the room, and his mandibles clicked together in what might have been satisfaction. Behind him floated his personal observation drone, a sleek device covered in sensors that hummed quietly as it scanned the room. "Attention, cadets!" Velthar's voice came out in perfect Confederation standard, though it carried a slight buzzing quality. "Today you receive your semester project. This assignment will account for 40% of your final grade." The room fell silent. Even the most confident students leaned forward to listen. "You will design and construct a long-range precision weapon," Velthar continued. His drone floated higher, recording everything. "The parameters are simple. Your weapon must accurately strike a target at 500 meters. You may use only materials available in the Academy's basic supply depot. You have 3 weeks from today." Questions? A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms raised one hand. "Instructor, are there restrictions on the type of weapon?" "None whatsoever," Velthar replied. "Energy-based kinetic, chemical, biological weapons are prohibited naturally, but beyond safety regulations you have complete freedom. I expect to see innovation, efficiency, and military-grade precision." Tai-hyun listened carefully. He noticed how Velthar's eyes lingered on the human section of the workshop. There were only 5 humans in the class, and they always sat together. Humans were the newest species to join the Confederation, having been invited only 30 years ago. Many of the older species still viewed them with suspicion or contempt. I should note, Velthar added, his mandibles clicking in what Taehyun had learned was amusement, that this academy has maintained high standards for 2 centuries. I trust all species will attempt to meet those standards. His eyes fixed directly on Taehyun. Even those whose civilizations have only recently achieved spaceflight. Several alien students made sounds that might have been laughter. Taehyun felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Beside him, his friend Hana touched his arm gently, a silent warning to stay calm. After Velthar dismissed the class, students rushed toward the supply depot. Taehyun watched as his classmates grabbed advanced materials, power cells, rare metals, and computing components. Doyeon, another human cadet, was already sketching out designs for what looked like a compact railgun. "What are you thinking?" Hana asked Taehyun quietly. She was a practical person, always following regulations, always prepared. They had become friends during basic training when Taehyun had helped her understand human combat philosophy. "I'm thinking about what we have that they don't," Taehyun said. "They have everything we have, plus 300 years of additional technology," Hana pointed out. "Exactly." Taehyun stood and walked toward the supply depot, but he moved in the opposite direction from the other students. Over the next few days, the workshop buzzed with activity. Alien students assembled complex devices with multiple components. Doyeon worked on his railgun with intense focus, determined to prove that humans could match any species in technological sophistication. The air smelled of hot metal and ozone from welding equipment. Taehyun worked quietly at his station. He had gathered unusual materials: rubber tubing, synthetic cord, leather scraps, and a Y-shaped piece of reinforced composite material that had been marked for disposal. He spent hours testing the elasticity of different materials, measuring tension ratios, calculating force distributions. Velthar's drone visited his station every day. The instructor himself stopped by frequently, his mandibles clicking in what was clearly derision. "Cadet Taehyun," Velthar said on the 5th day, "I see you have made little progress. Perhaps the assignment is beyond your current skill level? There is no shame in withdrawing." "I'm still in the research phase, Instructor," Taehyun replied calmly. "Research?" Velthar picked up one of the rubber tubes with a manipulator claw. "With children's toys?" Other students nearby stopped working to watch. Taehyun felt dozens of eyes on him. He kept his expression neutral. "With available materials, Instructor. As per your instructions." Velthar dropped the tube back onto the workbench. "I expected humans would at least attempt sophistication. It seems I overestimated your species." He walked away, his drone lingering for a moment longer before following. That evening in the dormitory, Doyeon confronted Taehyun. His railgun components were spread across his bunk and he looked frustrated. "What are you doing?" Doyeon demanded. "We're trying to show them that humans belong here, that we're not primitive." "And you're building what exactly? A slingshot?" "Yes," Taehyun said simply. "Are you insane?" Doyeon's voice rose. "Do you understand what's at stake? They already think we're backwards. They already think we got lucky discovering faster than light travel. You're proving them right." Hana stepped between them. "Let him work. He has a plan." "His plan is embarrassing all of us," Doyeon shot back. "I'm building a functioning railgun. It's not easy, but it's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to compete with them on their level." "Maybe that's the problem," Taehyun said quietly. "Competing on their level by their rules. This isn't a game." Doyeon's hands clenched into fists. "This is our future. If we fail here, if we look incompetent, they'll never take humans seriously. We'll always be the primitive newcomers who got lucky." Taehyun met his eyes. "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm trying to solve the problem. With a Stone Age weapon. With the right tool for the job." Doyeon shook his head in disgust and returned to his bunk. The silence in the dormitory was heavy. Taehyun knew that even the other human cadets were losing confidence in him. Over the following week, Taehyun refined his design. He manufactured perfectly spherical projectiles from dense alloy bearings he found in the mechanical workshop. He studied trajectory calculations, accounting for the Academy's artificial gravity, atmospheric pressure, and wind resistance in the testing range. He practiced the motion, the draw, the release until it became natural. He also watched Velthar's drone. Every day it circled the workshop, recording, analyzing, monitoring. Taehyun noticed its patterns, its movements, the way it adjusted altitude every 12 seconds like clockwork. On the 20th day, Hana sat beside him during lunch. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "No," Taehyun admitted, "but I'm sure about the math. The weapon works. I've tested it in the private range." "It's not about whether it works," Hana said gently. "It's about what it looks like. Perception matters here." "I know." Taehyun looked out the window at the distant stars. "My grandfather used to take me hunting when I was young. Back on Earth, in the countryside. He taught me to use a slingshot. He said it was the first weapon humans ever invented. Better than throwing rocks by hand. He said it kept us alive for thousands of years." "This isn't ancient Earth," Hana reminded him. "No," Taehyun agreed. "But maybe that's exactly why it'll work." The Academy's historical database was surprisingly comprehensive. Taehyun spent his evenings there, scrolling through files about ancient human warfare. He studied images of weapons from thousands of years ago. Slings that had brought down giants in old stories. Slingshots used by hunters and warriors. Bows that had decided the fate of empires. Trebuchets that had smashed castle walls. The librarian, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Ula, drifted over to his study pod one evening. "You are researching primitive weapons," Ula observed, her translated voice chiming like bells. "This is unusual for an engineering student." "I'm looking for principles," Taehyun explained. "These weapons worked for a reason. I want to understand why." "The Confederation has long since moved beyond such crude implements," Ula said, though her tone was curious rather than judgmental. "What can rocks and sticks teach you about modern warfare?" Taehyun looked up at the glowing image of an ancient sling. "They teach me about efficiency. These weapons had no power source, no complex parts. They were simple, reliable, and deadly. They worked in any environment. They couldn't be jammed or hacked or disabled." Ula pulsed with interest. "An interesting perspective. Good luck with your research, human." Back in the workshop, the differences between Taehyun and his classmates became more obvious each day, while others assembled circuit boards and calibrated energy cells. Taehyun wove synthetic cord and tested rubber elasticity. While they programmed targeting computers, he calculated trajectories by hand on sheets of paper. The mockery increased. Students from the Vrek species, large reptilian beings known for their military prowess, would walk past his station and make hissing sounds that translated as laughter. A group of insectoid cadets once stopped to examine his slingshot, chittering among themselves before one said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Perhaps the humans wish to return to their caves." Taehyun ignored them. He had learned early in his academy career that responding to provocations only made things worse. Besides, he was too focused on solving technical problems. The biggest challenge was the projectiles. They needed to be perfectly balanced, aerodynamic, and dense enough to maintain velocity over 500 meters. He tested dozens of materials before settling on steel alloy bearings. Each sphere was exactly 20 millimeters in diameter and weighed precisely 45 grams. He manufactured 30 of them, polishing each one until it was perfectly smooth. The pouch that would hold the projectile was equally critical. Leather was traditional, but Taehyun found a synthetic material in the supply depot that was stronger and more consistent. He cut and shaped it carefully, creating a cradle that would release the bearing at exactly the right moment. Instructor Mira, the human combat instructor, stopped by his station one afternoon. She was a stern woman in her 50s, a former Special Forces operator who had trained 3 generations of Earth's elite soldiers before joining the Academy staff. "Cadet," she said quietly, so others wouldn't hear. "What are you doing?" "Completing the assignment, ma'am." "With a slingshot?" "Yes, ma'am." Mira studied the weapon for a long moment. Her face was unreadable. "When I was a girl in Korea before I joined the military, my uncle taught me to use one of these. We hunted rabbits in the mountains. I got pretty good at it." Taehyun looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Really." Mira picked up one of the steel bearings, feeling its weight. "Have you tested it?" "In the private range, yes, ma'am. I can hit a target consistently at 500 meters. But you haven't shown anyone." "No, ma'am." "Why not?" Taehyun hesitated. "Because if I fail publicly, I prove them right. If I succeed, I want there to be no doubt. Mira set down the bearing. You're gambling your entire semester grade on one demonstration. Yes, ma'am. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, ma'am. For the first time, Mira smiled slightly. Carry on, cadet. As demonstration day approached, the workshop filled with completed weapons. Doyen's railgun was impressive, sleek, and efficient. It could fire small projectiles at incredible speed using electromagnetic acceleration. He had tested it successfully and was confident in its performance. Other students had built equally sophisticated devices. A three-eyed alien named Court had constructed a plasma rifle that could adjust its energy output based on target distance. A small furry creature called Pip had designed a laser array with multiple focusing lenses for precision strikes. Taehyun's slingshot looked pathetic by comparison. It was just a Y-shaped frame with rubber bands and a leather pouch. Some students openly laughed when they saw it on his workbench. Even Hana looked worried. It's not too late to withdraw, she said on the evening before demonstration day. You could cite personal reasons, take an incomplete, and retake the course next semester. I'm not withdrawing, Taehyun said. He was making final adjustments to the rubber tension, measuring it with a precision instrument borrowed from the physics lab. Taehyun, I know you believe in this, but look around. Look at what everyone else has built. These are military-grade weapons designed by some of the best engineering students in the Confederation. You have a slingshot. I have a weapon that works. So does everyone else. But theirs look like weapons. Yours looks like a toy. Taehyun put down his tools and faced her. Hana, do you trust me? Of course I do. Then trust me tomorrow. Watch what happens. Hana sighed but nodded. I hope you're right. For all our sakes. That night Taehyun couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, listening to the breathing of the other cadets. He thought about his grandfather, an old man with weathered hands who had survived the resource wars on Earth by being smart and adaptable. His grandfather had taught him that expensive didn't mean effective, and complex didn't mean superior. The best weapon, his grandfather had said while they sat in the Korean mountains, is the one you can make from what you have, that you can use without thinking, and that your enemy never sees coming. Taehyun had been 7 years old then, learning to hunt birds with a simple slingshot made from branches and rubber bands. He had thought it was just a game. Now, 20 years later and light years from Earth, he understood it had been a lesson. He got up and walked to the workshop. It was late and the room was empty except for the emergency lights. He found his slingshot on his workbench exactly where he had left it. He picked it up, feeling its weight, its balance. It fit his hand perfectly. He loaded one of the steel bearings into the pouch, drew back slowly, feeling the tension build, aimed at a distant wall panel. Released. The bearing flew across the workshop in a blur and struck the panel with a sharp metallic clang, right in the center. Taehyun smiled. Velthar's drone descended from the ceiling where it had been charging. Its sensors swept over him, recording. Taehyun wondered how long the instructor had been watching through its cameras. He wondered if Velthar had seen that practice shot. It didn't matter. Tomorrow, everyone would see. Taehyun returned to his bunk and finally fell asleep, the slingshot resting on the floor beside him. In his dreams, he was back in the Korean mountains with his grandfather, and the old man was smiling.